Imagine scrolling across social media and you happen to stumble across everyone's post. With heaps of likes and comments of adoration, perfect jobs, families, friends, it seems that their lives are perfect. As you scroll more, you begin to question yourself. Is there something they have that I don't? Is there something wrong with me? So you try to blend in. First, you change your posts, then your appearances, then even who you are. Yet, there is something deeper than simply fitting in. The more you try to blend in, the more you lose fragments of yourself. But if you try to embrace who you truly are, then you gradually become outcasted and even misunderstood. What I've described is one of the many scenarios that's part of a growing societal issue. Within the last 20 years, the World Health Organization describes a rise in social isolation, from over 25% of adults and almost 15% of adolescents to almost half of our society that face it. It has become one of the top 4 issues in the United States. My name is Thuy. Growing up, I have struggled to fit in while also stand out for multiple years. With social isolation becoming a prominent issue, even after the COVID-19 pandemic, I've explored what conformity and deviance is, how they play a role in society, and how to tackle such a paradoxical issue. Let's start by exploring conformity. Conformity, according to Britannica, is the process where people change their beliefs or perceptions to be closer to groups they want to belong to. And it has been embedded since the cornerstone of human culture through stringently following Hammurabi's code during 2000 BCE. Over time, it has shaped historical events like the 1692 Salem witch trials, when society conformed to the hysterical hatred towards accused witches, to the concept of FOMO, or fear of missing out, body image, and the latest trends on social media platforms nowadays. It was even mentioned in a certain psychological experiment, such as the Asch conformity experiment performed by Solomon Asch, where individuals prioritized group acceptance over what was actually right on a line length test. But how has it truly affected us? According to Very Well Mind, conformity can benefit us by feeling a sense of belonging, increase collaboration, and encourage us to adhere to norms. Say, for example, when we first practiced hygiene, how were we influenced? Most of the time, we learn through everyone around us to clean ourselves before we can even acknowledge the effects of germs. Yet, it can be a double-edged sword since it can lead to potentially doing risky behaviors from succumbing to peer pressure, increased feelings of prejudice, and a lack of openness towards what was considered different, and even the bystander effect, which is failing to do the right thing to please others, ultimately destroying who we truly are. So while conformity keeps us in check, what if someone strives to stand out? That's where deviance comes in. Deviance challenges what's considered normal in society. Throughout history, it has played a role from fighting to part ways from Great Britain during the American Revolution, to protesting against racial discrimination during the Civil Rights Movement, to introducing new freedoms for women to drive in the Middle East in 2018, to even impacting us today, from wearing clothes that's considered tacky, or seeing what's the new hit in practically anything. With deviance, we can foster social change and innovation, force ourselves to perceive and understand multiple perspectives, and be able to embrace ourselves. But deviance can stick out like a sore thumb instead, through carrying stigmas and being alienated from communities, causing rebellions if we as a society aren't in line, and even deep down, shrouding distrust from one another. More specifically, Merton had created a sociological theory on deviance known as strain theory that explores the acts of delinquency caused by the desire to conform, yet there is no motivation or means to achieve it, so they respond to it by committing crimes as an attack towards the social norms. So, does that mean we as a society have to keep each other in line to ensure stability, or do we constantly try to radicalize what's considered normal? Well, the answer is actually both. We must consider both conformity and deviance because they are essential to establish who we are as individuals and who we are as a society. From sociologist Emile Durkheim's theory on anomie, the concept can be interpreted as this. Deviance challenges us to redefine social norms that were unacceptable or even impossible at the moment, and as a result, new conformities emerge that can be more widely acceptable, and it goes on and on as a cycle. Yet, this duality comes with challenges. Many arguments go against balancing the concept by antagonizing each aspect. Since the 1950s, the word conformist or conformity has steadily become negatively associated or even rejected entirely for stifling creativity and representing the blindness of group association, following examples like the Asch conformity experiment previously mentioned, to the infamous and borderline unethical Stanford prison experiment where ordinary students absorb the roles as prisoners and guards. And on the flip side, deviance has always been construed as an untamed beast towards keeping groups stable, since it is assumed to reverse all of the structure that conformities have created. As a result, it is argued that balancing the two is considered impossible to progress society because they oppose each other. And while it can be conceptually true, both concepts are considered as neutral and are dependent on interpretations, meaning it depends on the type of conformity or deviance and if there is an excess. But more importantly, it is incomplete to argue for one or the other because they are both intertwined. Without deviance, we would not be able to reevaluate the conformities we had and reflect the social norms we have evolved to today. And without conformity, we would not be able to see the shift between accepted behaviors because it serves as a point of stability and reminds us of who we were once before. So if we try to solely align with how society behaves, we would not be free from our desires to express ourselves. And that can also be applied if we try to align with how society does not behave, because it gives us the illusion of freedom. Yet, we could truly never be free from the strain of social constraints. But how can we understand this phenomenon deeper? Let's visualize a coin. The coin represents who we are as a society, each side being deviance and conformity respectively. And if we were to spin the coin, we can see how each side of the coin changes. As the coin keeps spinning from its rim, its movement represents the stability and progression we have made towards each other from adjusting and changing. Essentially, resonating the first part of the podcast title and the cliché phrase, two sides of the same coin. Besides the coin analogy I have just explained, resonating with both can give a few perks. Let's say, for example, you, a peer, and I collaborate together on a project about analyzing a piece of artwork. As we collaborate, you might suggest interpreting the artwork's meaning based on where it came from, while the peer and I might suggest how the color palette or the paint strokes may convey the meaning. Yet in this scenario, we both agree that it makes sense to present your perspectives before ours, and combining as many ideas can make our analysis have some depth. But this example is one of many that shows how this duality can be the closest representation to society. From cultivating our next leaders and changemakers to striving for balance, we should consider how we interpret the systems and how others behave, not just from standing out or blending in, but rather embrace and traverse the fluidity of how we transform societal norms from observing the behaviors and cultures around us. But as we continue to navigate the paradoxical aspect of society and who we are within them, the looming questions remain. Will we ever break the cycle? Can we ever be satisfied with how society is? And where do we truly belong?